That makes a lot of sense.
You just don't see that, right?
So of course, one of the hot arguments we have, and that's women preachers. Everybody's jumping on, the Pauline epistles and what they say. And then you have people say, well, that's a cultural issue. I don't want to put you on the hot seat. So how do we approach that? Because, right now, I don't like to get involved in that conversation. I just kind of say like, okay, all right, women should teach other women, but, the other part, I don't know. And then I find myself not want to be confrontational. Because it's going to end up becoming confrontational regardless.
Yeah. So let me pull up the verse so we can look at it, because what we end up seeing here as we look at this is that I think the scripture gives us the answer. But
I believe that 100%.
Want to do, they don't want to read in context. So when we look at the issue, okay, and you see in 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 12, when it speaks about it, it says first in verse 11, let a woman learn in silence with all subjection, but I suffer not a woman to teach nor usurp authority over a man,
right?
But to be in silence. Okay, so people focus on that verse.
Right, that's true.
I will hear a lot of people that will say, well, this is a cultural thing. And there is some cultural element to this, because one of the things that when you're dealing with the way Jewish worship would be, you wouldn't have the men and women mixed.
Okay.
You would have men on one side, women in another. In fact, when I'd go to an Orthodox synagogue, even for the high holy days where it wasn't big enough to have two separate rooms, we'd have basically a barrier, a wall, a curtain that would go between where the men sat and the women sat.
Okay.
So that's still practiced in some synagogues today. And so you didn't have that. So now you picture them all mixing together where, some of this could be, and there's some element where this could be, this being in silence has to do with the fact that there was talk of the women being more talking during messages and the men couldn't be. There could be some of that, but what does it have to do with? Well, let's look at just looking up some things that we've already talked about. Look at the Greek. Well, instruction, okay, where the authority is a forceful authority. That helps us understand something. So a woman shouldn't be giving instruction to a man or have a forceful authority over them. But the thing is, if you just read the context, verses 13 and 14 give us the reason for this. So is this a cultural reason? That's not what the scripture says, because it says, for Adam was formed first and then Eve. So let's stop there. What is it saying? Is that rooting it in culture? No, it roots it in the creation order.
Right.
Because God created Adam first, then Eve. So it has to do with headship. Now, does that mean that men are better than women? No.
Right.
No more than saying the President of the United States is better than any of us. He has a higher position. Who's ever in that office has a higher position than us in our land. But guess what? The President of the United States has no position over someone in India.
Exactly.
There's no relation there, so that they're just another human being now, right? There is positions that we have. So the male headship, and by the way, with that brings in federal headship of the reason man is blamed for sin is because that was the federal headship. So it wasn't when Eve partook of the fruit, it was when Adam partook of the fruit that we have the curse of sin. But when you look at this, he roots it, he grounds it, saying for or because Adam was formed first. So the first reason for this instruction is Adam's being formed first. So it's the creation order. But in verse 14, he gives a second reason. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman being deceived was in transgression. So now it's the sin order. So first the creation order, second the sin order, both of them rooted in creation, not culture.
True.
So what do you do now? So now you have the question of, okay, how far does this go? Does this mean that this applies everywhere?
Yeah.
Or is it only within the church? Because First Timothy is a book that's geared toward teaching how the church should function.
Yes,
so is it just for church, or does it extend beyond? Now, how can we possibly figure that one out? Well, this is how I would figure that one out. remember what I said. The general instruction. Most people want to focus on the forceful authority, but I'm going to go to the general instruction for this reason. What do we have? Christ, who cannot sin, giving instruction to the women to give instruction to the male disciples at his resurrection.
Right.
If a woman can't give general instruction to a man, Jesus is asking them to sin.
Good point.
All of a sudden we go, okay, so this can't apply everywhere now because Jesus doesn't sin. So the way to deal with this then is understand the context of the book of 1 Timothy, the book written to how to run the church. Now knowing that obviously women can give instruction outside of the church, we end up seeing that this must be the way that the church should function between men and women's roles.